Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupa Shishima Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Shri Maharaj, Gauradupan Gurvarga, and all the Sangha Vaishnavas and Vaishnavas. So we continue with our daily reading of Chaitanya-sikshamrita. 2 days we have not read, so necessary to make some review, otherwise we forget. So we are now in the which chapter? We're now in the third shower, which is about, what is the third shower about?
Primary rule.
Yeah, the primary, bhakti itself. Previously was all about the secondary rules. So we just finished the first section of that chapter. And do you remember what was discussed at that time? What did we discuss? That section, the first stream of the third shower. There was a discussion about basically two types of progress, of bhakti. You remember? One is
Gradual.
there's a gradual development, and one is instantaneous. Huh? You remember that? Okay? So the gradual meaning, understanding that people, and this is the general way, people advance to bhakti in a gradual way. Like how? Like first, from the very bottom point of consciousness, like animals. So one can begin from uncivilized. Uncivilized meaning what? Yeah, like very primitive type and almost like animal. Then after that, civilized. Then after civilized meaning what? There's already some. What do you mean when someone following civility? In the primitive life, it's more like individualistic. There's some type of grouping, but it's like so much selfishness there still. And there's no system really about God or anything. Now in civilized also, there's more like advancement there. We have some ideas of family and society, and more in a very organized way. But this one can progress to a moral society. Ultimately, it's going this civilized society. Ultimately, it leads to morality. When you say following morality, what? There's some concern of harmony with each one, and not considering pain for other people, some ideas of justice, something like that. And so there's all these laws for that, moral laws. But a lower type of morality is we follow morality, but without any idea of God. So it's like atheistic. Yeah. So people in that stage, they can be moral but atheist. But then higher than that is moral and theist, wherein ultimately they acknowledge that there is an existence of God, and it veers towards following the rules of God. So now, from that point, there's people following Dharma. So you can see the gradual development. And generally, there's all this, when you say karma, gyan, that's already on that level. Theistic morality. But then higher than that when they enter bhakti. So it's like that. Mahaprabhu has explained this to Rupa Goswami. This is how people gradually develop. And so when they enter bhakti, there's also stages. And Rupa Goswami explained that. When someone engaged in so much pious activities, they accumulated so much sukriti, then they meet sadhus. And from sadhus, then some faith can come. And actually that is like the beginning of bhakti. So then this faith gradually, by continued association with sadhus, then this faith gradually developed into nishta. But before that, there has to be sadhu sangha, and by sadhu sangha, then someone is engaged in bhajan. And then anarthas will go away. So therefore, with shraddha, that there's sadhu sangha, bhajanti, anartha nivritti, then it further develops into nishta. Then further that, ruchi, then asakti, and finally bhav. And bhav, that means, really, now you're in the stage of pure bhakti. And that has to develop into praying like this. So that's how gradual development. Okay, but there's another type mentioned is instantaneous. So that means that someone can jump, he can be like uncivilized, but then suddenly like in instant. Now relishing bhav, and now progressing towards praying. Very quick, like this. So there can be 3 reasons for that. You remember? What? How does this type of progress happen? One is because of Bhagavan's mercy. Bhagavan is ultimately like the controller, and he's independent. He can break all the rules, and by His mercy, like someone can just go, very quickly. That's by His mercy. Another one is by mercy of His devotees. His devotees also is very powerful. Will only just like you will have to pray, and then can happen. And we can see many examples. Like Narad Muni, he met this one hunter. So that hunter is even very cruel, like uncivilized, And because of Narad Muni and his mercy, then he became a great devotee. Story of Valmiki, same. Then another, so there's 3 like factors, 3 reasons. What's the other one? In his past life, he must have done like sadhana, and now he's actually getting the result of that sadhana. So now he may be born maybe in a low caste family, and it appears like that his society is like very low caste, no bhakti at all. But somehow or other, his nature, already like devotee, or maybe for some time he not appearing like a devotee, but at certain point suddenly he just very quickly, and that is because in his past life he has already attained a higher stage, and so now he's just continuing. But we advise that we don't put our hope on we think that it can happen to us. We don't have to endeavor, right? So Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, better to follow the gradual process. And he's giving us advice how you can progress nicely. You remember? It's like walking. First, you have to firmly establish yourself in your present stage. You have to be sincere and look what stage I am in. And that stage, you firmly establish yourself. But at the same time, now, be one-pointed to continue like this. It's like walking. Now, before you can step, your back foot has to be settled, very firmly. And then you can step for the next step. And while doing that, get ready to renounce the old one, and so then you can step next, like that. So that's how Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes. At first, you establish yourself very firmly on what stage you are qualified now. But don't get attached to there, because you have to go to the next one. That is, and at some point, when you're ready to be established on the next one, like also, like, don't be attached. Otherwise, you cannot move. You understand? Because some people, they're on the stage of karmakanda, and now they're entering bhakti, but they cannot progress because they're so attached to all their karma activities. So he's saying like that. Also, he said, don't also try to walk very fast. So he said, if you walk too fast, then you can fall. That means if you're not firmly established and you take a step and then immediately you renounce, before you become established in the next one, like this, then you can fall. Or the other way around, like taking too much time, you delay so much. And what happens? You create so much obstacles to your development. So, but of course, best is stay in association of the devotees. In the association, the development becomes very easy. So, we discussed all that, and then after that, we discussed about, he proceeded to discussing characteristics of bhakti. What is the identity of bhakti? You remember? And mainly the discussion is actually based on the definition by Rupa Goswami. So what are the characteristics of bhakti? One is that its only motivation is only bhakti. It's not motivated by other desires. You understand? So that's why it's anya pilasita sunya. Your purpose of doing bhakti is really only for attaining bhakti, not other things. Okay, so only for that desire, no other desires. If you desire sense gratification, and that is not bhakti. If you desire liberation, that is not also bhakti. So activities for sense gratification is karma. Activities for liberation is jnana. Understand? So he said this bhakti, then it is not covered by karma and jnana. So this three characteristics, and they are actually secondary. Secondary meaning in this world, that is how bhakti appears. Like this. In this world. That whatever your activity is, it's the only purpose for that is for bhakti, service to Krishna. And it is not covered by jnana and karma. But then the main characteristic, meaning main characteristic because this is always the swarupa of bhakti. Even not in the material world. In the spiritual world, there's bhakti. Like this. So, what is that? Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam. So then it says Anushilan. This word Anushilan means cultivation. Cultivation. So what are you cultivating? You're cultivating activities and moods. Yeah, like endeavors. Your endeavor is and also sentiments, moods. These two things. What type of endeavor and moods? For Krishna. That which is anukul, favorable to Krishna. Okay. What's the opposite of that? Otherwise, if not favorable, then it's called antagonistic. Understand? So activities that's not favorable to Krishna, antagonistic to Krishna. Then that's the opposite. Okay, like let's say to give the example, wrestling here in Mathura, this Chanur Mustik, they wrestle with Krishna. Actually, Krishna very happy, but that is not bhakti. Although it making Krishna happy. Why? Because this activity was done out of the desire to kill Krishna. It's not favorable to Krishna. Okay, and it's cultivating their mood against Krishna, antagonistic mood. Okay, so, however, another example, Mother Yashoda. Mother Yashoda, Krishna wants to stay with Mother Yashoda, but Mother Yashoda, seeing the milk boiling, putting Krishna on the bed and leaving Krishna. And Krishna became very angry. Like, Mother is leaving me, like this, and crying. So you may think of, like externally, you will see like, oh, Krishna angry, so maybe not bhakti. But it is bhakti. Why? Because that activity is for favor of Krishna. And it's done with the mood, like, which is like favorable for Krishna. Why? Because she's going to like save the milk from going to the fire. Because this milk will be utilized for making many preparations for Krishna. So like that. So that's where we ended last time, discussing the characteristics of bhakti. So now we continue. This is now in the second section of that chapter. The rules concerning cultivation of bhakti. Okay, so we're talking about cultivation of bhakti. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, while passing through the journey of life, one should remain within the varnashram system. He's saying, okay, passing through the journey of life, one should remain in the varnashram system. This is an example of, like how he's saying, the gradual development. You cannot say like, now I'm bhakti, I will give up. This varnashram system is karma kanda. We actually recommend people follow the varnashram system, but we follow this because it will be favorable. Use it for what is only for favorable for developing bhakti. The mighty bhakta should always endeavor to keep the lotus feet of Sri Krishna within his heart. This is called bhakti yoga. It is the duty of the devotees following mighty bhakti to cultivate Bhagavad Bhakti. Now we're using this term Bhagavad Bhakti. It has already been defined, right? What's Bhagavad Bhakti? From the word Vaidhi. Vaidhi means like rules. One is following Bhakti, like following all the rules for Bhakti. If someone trying to follow all the rules of bhakti, and this will try to develop bhakti. That following rules for bhakti, that's called Vaidhi Bhakti. Like you read Shastra. Like in Shastra, there's a very nice like chapter about like Prahlad. And Prahlad showing this example. He's teaching like from the early childhood. Oh, already we should be trained for bhakti. So what we need to do? Shravana, Kirtana, Vishnu-smarana, like this. Hearing, chanting, remembering Krishna, and so on. So, all these things that he's telling, like all these injunctions, then if someone has faith that, he wants to have this bhakti, so then they follow this, they follow the words of the scriptures, they follow all these rules. It is very bhakti. It is very good. Follow it. So, he said, 5 methods to cultivate Bhagavad Bhakti. By those things relating to, first one is by body. Second, by mind. 3, by the Atma, or the soul. 4, according to material situation. And 5, by society. So these are like 5 methods of how this Bhagavad Bhakti is being cultivated. Okay, so one by one he's going to discuss them. Okay, so first cultivating devotion by body. That's the first one. By body. So as far as by body is concerned, there are 7 ways of cultivating devotion to Bhagavan by body. The term for this actually is Sharira Gata Anushila. So this is Anushila, cultivation. But it's based on Sharira, body. Sharira Gata Anushila. all the external senses come under this category of cultivation. Okay, cultivation using all the external senses. And he said there are 7 ways for that. So one is Shravanagata, meaning hearing. Another is Kirtanagata, meaning Kirtan, chanting. Then Agrahanagata. What is Agrahanagata? Agrahanagata, meaning smelling. Smelling. So when we say Shravanagata, hearing, what sense is being used here? The ears, no. And then Kirtanagata, chanting, now your speech, your tongue. Then Agrahanagata, smelling, that means your nose. Then there's Darshanagata. What do you think is this? It's seeing, it's eyes. Then 5, Sparshagata. That is Sparsha, means touch. Sparsha. Sparshagata, touch. And 6, Swadagata. Swadagata means taste. Tasting. So that's the tongue also. Tasting. So one is chanting, which is more like speech. And the other one is tasting. And 7, Angagata. Angagata meaning by the limbs of the body. By the limbs of the body. So you can remember this? 7. Like 7 ways to cultivate devotion by body. So what is that? Shravanagata, Kirtanagata, what else? Smelling, Agrahanagata, then eyes, Darshanagata, touch, Sparshanagata, Swadagata, 6, and 7 by the limbs of the body. Okay, you remember that? So, now one by one, he's explaining it. Shravanagata Anushilan is hearing. He said there are 3 methods of hearing that cultivate devotion to the Lord. So this one is the first one. There's 7, right? By body. So the first one, there's 3 types of them. 3 methods. 3 methods of hearing. First one, hearing scriptures. Second, hearing the chanting of the holy name or songs which are related to Him. One is scripture, second songs or names, the holy names, chanting of His holy names. And third, hearing fully devotional harikatha. So these 3 methods of Shravanagata. You can remember. The first one is hearing scriptures.
What's the difference?
Third one.
One probably is reading from scripture and you're hearing. And then the second one is hearing the holy name, maybe the chanting and some prayers. And the third one is someone speaking harikatha. So, listening to descriptions of the pastimes of the Lord as given in the scriptures, such as the Srimad Bhagavatam, discussing His tattva, listening to the life and teachings of the great devotees, and hearing the Puranic histories dealing with Vaishnavas are all called Shastra Shravan. So this is now what our answer to the question. So what is this hearing scriptures, meaning Shastra Shravan? So it says listening to the descriptions of the pastimes of the Lord in the scriptures, like those in Srimad Bhagavatam, or discussing His tattva, listening to the life and teachings of the great devotees, or the Puranic histories dealing with Vaishnavas. Okay, those ones. Now, hearing the books composed by the previous spiritual masters that are based upon evidence from authentic scriptures, such as the Vedanta, which have refuted non-devotional conclusions, is a major devotional activity or form of Bhagavat Anushila. Devotion towards Bhagavan is the real essence of all scriptures. The following is a 6-fold process for ascertaining the inner meaning of any scripture. So we are still in the discussion about hearing scriptures. So he's saying here that sixfold process for ascertaining the inner meaning of any scripture. He said, when you hear about scriptures and you want to understand really the inner meaning, then there's all these 6 parts that someone has to study. First, upakram. Upakram meaning the introduction. So you have to look when you study scripture or hear scripture. You have to look. There's always an introduction part. Then, if there's introduction, then there's upasamhar. Upasamhar means the conclusion. Then, number 3, abhyas. When you say abhyas, you have to note down in that story, there's always something being repeated again and again. There's some repetition. Okay. So the first one, introduction. Second is the conclusion. Then third is like the repetition. The conclusion meaning the last. Then number 4, apurvatafal. Said, observing the uncommon result attained. So there will be some, you have to ascertain introduction, ascertain the conclusion, ascertain what is being repeated. But then you have to see also that there's some fruit that is uncommon, that is being attained in whatever the lesson, the scripture. This may be related to the conclusion, but something there, something uncommon result. Then number 5, artabat. Artabat. You have to note down any over-glorification, any exaggeration, or significance of a word. Sometimes you have to pay attention. Sometimes there are things that are being exaggerated, or being, exaggeration, over-glorified. And 6, upapati, resolution. Resolution. Usually in some stories, there's always some problem, and you can see like, what are the different resolution that are made. So like that. This is different from the conclusion. The conclusion is the final one, because resolution can be, upapati can be many, like this. So then, you can remember that. Upakram, upasanghar, abhyas, apurvatafal, artabat, upapati. Devotion to the Lord, Hari Bhakti, is indeed the import of all Vedic scriptures when they are examined by this process. So this is what Bhaktivinoda is saying. If you read scriptures, and if you really deliberate according to the 6, it will always come out to the actual deep meaning. Deep explanation. All will go towards bhakti. He said the import of all the scriptures would be bhakti. If you examine according to this process, according to the 6. Okay, so that is all about in that section on hearing scriptures. So then next one should hear songs not simply for the pleasure of the sense of hearing. So this is the second one, hearing songs or kirtan, like holy names. He said one should hear songs not simply for the pleasure of the sense hearing, but rather for expanding one's devotional inclination towards Bhagavan. One should also hear songs that are full of its pastimes. Ordinary songs or music that increase the deluded mind's attraction toward material enjoyment and simply give pleasure to one's ears should always be completely rejected. Did you get that? Did you get that? Bhaktivinoda said the ordinary songs or music. And sometimes they're very attractive. Most of the time, actually, they're very attractive. And he said, what they do, they increase the delusion of the mind. You know, mind attracted towards material enjoyment. Like this. And they just increase that attachment towards material enjoyment. So he said, these should be given up. They go completely rejected. Sometimes, and this is by my experience, sometimes you attach to a certain type of music, you know, because that desire to enjoy is there. Like that. And so now that you become a devotee, then it's like, oh, I can redirect, you know. I'll just put my mantra there, but still you're in that mood of trying to enjoy it, like this. And it's like, yeah, you're still contaminating the thing. And you look, if there's a pure devotee chanting, you don't want to hear. There's many recordings, Prabhupada chanting, or Srila Maharaj. We know the Shuddhanam and the chanting, very simple, no so much instruments. But you like all this techno or like, you know, like this kind of beats or like rock and roll. You'd rather hear that with the Mahamantra and all this like people singing than this, because your attachment is actually not on the whole name. You're attached to the enjoyment of certain type of like music, like that. So then we wonder like, oh, why I'm still not having this bhakti and like that. Why? Because you're not really fully cultivating. We're now talking about this cultivation. No, this is how you cultivate. So this is by body, cultivating by body in the first group, the first one, by ears. Okay. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, when serving the deity, one should hear devotional music, prayers, etc. While serving the deity, he said one should hear devotional music, prayers. And it's very good. It enhances the mood. I know someone, they're doing archan and hearing techno. I couldn't believe it even. The techno music. And you can hear the beat actually. Like that. And we're doing this like shalagram or whatever. Like this. So, next one. So that's all about Shravan. What's it called? Shravanagata. Shravanagata Anushila. So now, second one is Kirtanagata Anushila. Cultivation by chanting.
Harikatha, we skip Harikatha.
He already is kind of like mixed with the other ones, with the scripture one. So, he said, cultivation of Kirtan is supremely sublime. There are 5 types of devotional chanting. Okay, so now, with the hearing, there's 3 types. No? 3 types, right? Or 3 methods. But here in the Kirtan, it says 5 types of devotional chanting. Singing of the devotional scriptures, chanting the names, forms, and pastimes of Bhagavan, chanting of hymns. And I think he will explain. Let's see. So first is singing of devotional scriptures, chanting of the names, forms, and pastimes of Bhagavan, chanting of hymns, entreaties for solicitation, vigyapti, and japa, repetition of name. So, the chanting of his names and pastimes may be done by informal speech, by lecture, by explanation or song. There are 3 types of solicitation. One is vigyapti, meaning prayers, vigyapti, or eager longing, prarthanamai, and danya bodhika, humble entreaties. And prayers of intense longing, lalasamai. So how many are there? 3 types. But there's 4. one is prayers, humble prayers, like humble appeal, and prayers of intense longing, lalasamay. Chanting the name in a very soft manner is called japa. Okay, did you get that? Let's try to see if we can differentiate them. So 5 types of devotional chanting. One is singing scriptures. Okay. Then chanting names, forms, or pastimes of Bhagavan. Then the next one is vidyakti. No, chanting of hymns. So how does that differ with the others? Chanting of scriptures and chanting of the names and form pastimes. Then there's chanting of hymns. What's an example of hymns? But then there's all this solicitation.
That one is like a request.
Huh? Request.
Hymns means the glorification.
Yeah, hymns. Yeah, glorification. But the other one is more like request. Yes. Begging. Okay, so hymns, which are like glorifications. Then the other one are just prayers of like, you know. So there are also types of prayers. But one is like he's saying out of like eager longing. So they're praying. And or out of humility. Humble like, and intense longing. That is lalasamay. So this one. So that is the 4th one. And the 5th one is japa. So japa usually like repetition and silent, quiet. You know, like not so loud. So that's, you can remember that 5. So then we need to go to the next. What's the next one? After hearing and chanting, the next one will be the smelling. Agranagata anusila. Agranagata. We should cultivate devotion to Bhagavan by smelling what? Flowers, tulsi leaves, sandalwood paste, incense, garlands, and camphor, which have been offered to the Lord. So this is not considered agranagata anushilan if you just like incense for your enjoyment. You're smelling the incense. This is like, but you offer incense to the Lord and smelling the prasadam is incense, then this is agranagata anushilan. The smelling of scents that are not offered to Bhagavan simply increases the attachment of the insignificant material senses. Okay, so that's what happens. We get a flower, we don't offer only like smelling. What happens to that? You only just increase your attachment to these insignificant material senses. Thus, one should completely reject it. Completely reject this practice. Sometimes anything we hear, because sometimes you cannot avoid. You go anywhere, there's always some bad smell or nice smell somewhere. So immediately, like you smell very nice, then you think, oh, very nice, and you enjoy it. You forget really the purpose of this nice smell. But if somehow or other, like any nice smell, then it should remind you, like, this must be there must be some deity there, and they're offering, like immediately you have to redirect. Otherwise, like it will enhance your mood that I'm the enjoyer, like that. Then number 4, darshanagata anushila. What is that? Seeing. It is one's duty to cultivate devotion by seeing the deity form of the Lord, Srimurti, obtaining his merciful glance, seeing the Vaishnava devotees, seeing the holy places related to Bhagavan, seeing his temples, seeing dramatic performances enacting his pastimes, as well as pictures and paintings that depict the same. So these are examples of darshan gata anushila, cultivation of bhakti by sight, by darshan. So what are they again? You see the beautiful form of the Lord, the beauty, trying to get his merciful glance, or seeing like darshan of Vaishnavas, the devotees, get darshan of the devotees, or the dham, you go to the holy places, have darshan, or you go to temples, or it said dramatic performances. So we're going to have some drama, then many people can have darshan of drama. Drama, of course, it says dramatic performances enacting Krishna's pastimes. Like this. Not your some pastimes. Many one can be making drama, but it could be the drama about Gandhi or this particular politician or this hero and like that. Those are, it will enhance your material attachments. You know, these are considered prajalpa. Like this, still like prajalpa. So many like that. You just go to your YouTube channel, like YouTube, you know, and then you can see all these different drama performances. So using the sense of, aside from that, then pictures and paintings like that gives you darshan of Krishna's pastimes. So using the sense of sight to see materialistic forms. Listen. To use the sense of sight to see materialistic forms, this simply cast the jiva into the bewildering pit of sense gratification and forgetfulness of Bhagavan. See, having darshan of all this materialistic sight, what does it do? It just makes you forget Krishna. And it continues to bewilder you. It says it's a bewildering pit. Like the sense gratification is like a pit. It's like a big hole. That like very deep hole that's like like trapping you. Like a trap. So one should carefully reject this tendency. Whatever we see in this material world should be seen only in relation to Bhagavan. Because you cannot stop looking. You cannot stop looking. So it has to be a way that whatever you see should always be redirected, always to this, be seen in relation to Bhagavan. Okay, so that is number 4, right? So now, what's 5th? Cultivation of touch. Sparsha gata anushila. Touching. So the act of feeling by sense of touch is performed by the sense of touch. It is the strict duty of those cultivating Vaidhi Bhakti to refrain from touching those averse to the Lord and external things that are opposed to Krishna's service. Did you get that? He said this is a strict duty. You're not talking about Vaidhi Bhakti. Vaidhi Bhakti means rules. Like this. The very strict duty of those cultivating Vaidhi Bhakti. Like avoid, as much as possible, not touch anyone who is or anything averse to the Lord. And like any external things that are opposed to Krishna service. Don't touch these things. They should find bliss in touching the deity form of Bhagavan during service. So the devotee, we have all this tendency to touch. So how do you direct that? Oh, you should use that to touch the form of the Lord, the deity. When you're serving, you have that opportunity. Don't try to, here is being qualified. During service, then you can touch. It's not like you force the pujari, let me go inside the temple. So why? I want to touch the deity. No. You have that opportunity when you're serving. Like tomorrow is Chaitanya-sikshamrita. Then that is very great opportunity. To touch Krishna, even massage him. Why? Because you're putting chandan, you're covering his body with chandan. Like this. So that's why, like Prabhupada was explaining yesterday, this day is like very merciful day. And Krishna also very merciful arranging this day. You won't find any other time, even for other manifestations of Bhagavan, like this. Even Mahaprabhu not giving this opportunity. Mahaprabhu is very strict, even in his time. He's sannyasi. No one allowed to touch. He won't accept like any oil or like that. But Krishna is arranging all this time. Summertime, very hot. Then, okay, it's your service, putting some chandan. And it's actually like a manifestation of, the seasons. They are like manifestations of the moods of Radha and Krishna. So like summer is like a time of separation. So then how you can help mitigate this heat of separation? Then when you make Radha and Krishna meet, Radharani herself, she's telling, and Rupa Goswami has one shloka about this. He said that, Radha said that I am the chandan, I am sandalwood that cools the body of Krishna. So Krishna himself asking Madhavendra Puri, put chandan in my body. So tomorrow Chandanatra, actually not only tomorrow, Monday, Chandanatra many days. So you have all opportunity to touch the deity, by service. So this is example of cultivation by touch, cultivation of bhakti by touch. So should find bliss, find happiness in touching the deity form of Bhagavan during service. They should derive indescribable happiness in touching and embracing the devotees of the Lord. So not only touching the deity also, but also the devotee. So, when you touch the devotee, then that is what you aspire. That his moods of bhakti will also come to you. So in the same way, you are touching him by service also. So you have opportunity to serve him, like you can massage the devotee, like your Gurudev, like this. So, then this way you're cultivating devotion. Jai Panchatattva Yogi Jai. So, he said, you should derive indescribable happiness. So much happiness, you cannot describe it. By touching and embracing the devotees of the Lord. The sense of touch, like Mahaprabhu, every time he sees Sanatana Goswami, then he becomes very happy to embrace Sanatana Goswami. The problem is, Sanatana Goswami had this skin disease one time. His body was full of boils and many, pus and blood like this. But Mahaprabhu not looking that. He's so happy seeing Sanatana Goswami, immediately embracing. And Sanatana Goswami tried to run away, because he said my body is so impure. But Mahaprabhu very big, Sanatana Goswami small, and immediately catching him like this. And Sanatana Goswami feels very embarrassed. And he feels actually this is very offensive to Mahaprabhu. And especially he looking at the devotees. That they also feel bad because Mahaprabhu's body is touching this blood and pus. So Sanatana Goswami even telling this body is a cause of my offense. Rather kill this body. So during Rath Yatra he's thinking I'll get this body smashed by the chariot of Jagannath. Like this. But then Mahaprabhu telling to Sanatana Goswami, hey Sanatana, he's telling, what did Mahaprabhu say? He said that this body is not yours. This body is mine. Like this. What makes you think that you have the right to take this body away? Like this. And he's saying that if by suicide you can have bhakti, I myself will do millions of times suicide. But Mahaprabhu said, this is not the way to attain bhakti. Then Mahaprabhu taking this disease away. But I'm just telling this example because it shows, like Mahaprabhu himself giving an example, that when you see a devotee, and that opportunity to touch their body and embrace them, like that is cultivation of bhakti, and that is a source of so much happiness. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, one should derive indescribable happiness in touching and embracing the devotees of the Lord. So he said the sense of touch is most powerful, and because of it, there is a constant chance of committing sinful activity in the form of taking bad association and engaging in illicit relation with the opposite sex. Did you get that? You understand that? He said this sense of touch is most powerful. He said very powerful. And because of it, because of that, there's a constant. I mean, the chance is always there that you can commit sinful activity by this sense of touch. How? If you don't use it into Krishna or the devotee. If you use this touching with mundane people, and then what happens? Then you fall into like bad activities. In bad association, then usually they engage in illicit activities. And that's what happens, So devotees should make a very strong vow that they will never touch anyone who is not a devotee of the Lord. That is the thing. That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur said. Because this sense of touch is very powerful. It may start from a touch. You're walking and some lady is there, like your brahmachari, and sometimes you touch like that. And then now the whole time you're thinking now, oh, like this. So be very careful. Never, never touch anyone who is not a devotee of the Lord, no matter who they may be, and what their relationship is with that person. He said, they may be your mother or father, if they're atheists and like that. No more touching. If you are a devotee. Or they can be the most powerful, or the president or whatever. Like Mahaprabhu giving this example also. King Prataparudra, he's actually a devotee, but Mahaprabhu giving just to be an example. He is a sannyasi. So Mahaprabhu did not want even to see, to give darshan to King Prataparudra. King Prataparudra asked me so many times, please arrange that I can have darshan Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu will not allow it. But later on, he got darshan. How? During Ratha Yatra, Mahaprabhu, he was so tired, he was resting. Then by the arrangement of the devotees, then King Prataparudra, this guy is not wearing like clothes of a king. He went there to the garden where Mahaprabhu was resting, and then he massaging Mahaprabhu and singing Gopi Geet like this. And Mahaprabhu hearing, I'm very happy, hearing Gopi Geet, and he embracing even with the King Prataparudra. Like, oh, you are so, you're most magnanimous. You're giving me life like this. And you can see. That's an example also. Like, for the devotee, he's always happy to embrace. But someone materialist, not devotee, doesn't even want to be seen by them, to see them. So he said that simply touching the body of another is not considered to be bodily contact. Oh, so this is also an example of something to understand. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, simply touching the body of another is not considered to be bodily contact. Rather, the feeling of sensual satisfaction that arises from the contact is said to be the actual touch. The actual touch is the feeling of satisfaction that arises from the contact. You're following that? So you can actually, it's happen, you touch, but there's no feeling of satisfaction in that contact, then there's no touch. But let's say there's a very nice cloth, you touch, oh, very nice, then you keep touching, you know? Then that's already like touching. And if it's nothing to do with Krishna, it's just you enjoying it. It's just you enjoying it. But then maybe the cloth of Krishna and touching, oh, very nice. You know, you think like, oh, I'm so lucky, I'm being purified. Oh, just touching this cloth of Krishna. Oh, you know, like this. And you have so much mood out there, like, oh, please. Like Krishna, you're praying, all these prayers, like this one, touching his cloth. Then that is like cultivation of bhakti by touch. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, this warning is not just in relation to the sense of touch. This rule applies to all the senses. Okay, so this rule applies to all the senses, not just to the sense of touch. So now number 6, 30. So we can stop there. We finished up to 5. There's 2 more. Which one is this? Which category?
Sharira.
By body. Sarira. Because how many are there?
7.
There are 7. You remember? What are they? By body, then?
By hearing.
No, the hearing and others, that's in the category of body. You understand? So, what are they? Let's try to review. There's 7 ways of cultivating. 7 ways of cultivation by body. But, well, first, there's 5 methods of cultivating Bhagavad Bhakti. One is by body, then by mind, by the Atma, by your material situation, and by society. You can remember that? By body, mind, soul, Atma, then material situation, and society. Okay? All of these 5 will be explained. Right now, we are in the first one, by body. And so by body, we mentioned 7 types. 7 types how this by body cultivation of bhakti is done. So first one is by hearing. And by hearing, there's how many? 3. By hearing scriptures, hearing kirtan, and hearing, what's the other one? Harikatha. Then speaking, hearing chanting. So chanting also has how many? 5? Yeah. How many did you say? 5. Yeah, 5. Singing devotional scriptures, chanting the names and forms. Then chanting hymns, and the other one are prayers, right? And japa. So that's 5. So that's all under chanting. Then smelling. So there's smelling. So that's 3rd. What's 4th? Seeing. And then 5th, the one we just discussed, touch. Then 2 more. What is that? By taste and by the limbs of the body. Tasting by tongue and limbs of the body. Okay, so then that makes 7. So that's, all of that is under body. Then after that, the discussion on by mind. Okay, we continue tomorrow. Jai Shri Gurudev ki Jai, Shri Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki Jai, Jai Shri Chaitanya-sikshamrita ki Jai, Jai Gaur Premanande.